Hello and welcome to the Designated Pundits. We are previewing the 2025 Major League Soccer season for all 30 Major League Soccer teams. And today we have the luck to talk about Toronto FC. All right, thank you for tuning in. If you are live on a Sunday afternoon, thank you for joining us. If you're watching on a replay, make sure you guys hit that subscribe button. Find us on your favorite podcast platform. Just search the Designated Pundits. Actually, if you just search for Major League Soccer, I think we're like top 5 on there if you just want to do that. Otherwise, you can find us designatedpundits.com, youtube.com/@ the Designated Pundits. Today, we are joined by Jeffrey Nesker, a friend of the show from the Waking the Red, not Walking the Red. I need to say that out loud about 10 times every time I have him on. Waking the Red, Toronto FC podcast. Jeff, how you doing today?
I mean,
a little bit of impending doom.
Yeah, a little bit of doom scrolling all day. You know, watching the world spin right off the rails, and I thought to myself, hey, what would be the perfect cap to this day? Well, let's talk about TFC's 2025 season. You know, whew, I'm a sicko. Jeez.
I think we're just about all there with you. I can't wait for soccer. Actually, I think it's going to be a nice mind-clearing event for as long as we can do it now. Yeah, as long as all the players who are signed actually get American visas and can actually play in this country, that would be great to lock that in. But this is going to make everyone feel better. Let's talk about 2024. Do a brief recap for Toronto FC. 11-4-19 record, 7-0-10 at home, full 4-4-9 away. 40 goals scored. That is very, very few. 61 goals conceded, slightly under Major League Soccer average. Minus 21 goal differential, 11th in the East. And somehow only 3 points from playoff position. I guess that's a good thing about Major League Soccer.
That. And I was like, are we sure? Because it felt a lot more. But yeah, no, we took it right to the our 1 week before decision day. Yeah, so it does make some sense. But yeah,
I think it was one of those weird cases where you guys were eliminated real far before that, just because the teams you were tied with had a positive goal differential, and unless you won 25-0 in the last match of the season, you were getting booted there. But I guess we have to talk a little bit about it. The one thing I do like, a low number of draws. I'm like a Moneyball guy, and I think that if you have that chance to get those 2 extra points, you gotta go, like, you gotta risk it. You gotta risk it to get those extra 2 points. So you did something right. And I think that, you know, the drawing not a lot and getting those few extra wins did help you get into a spot where you look like a manageable soccer team somewhere in there. 2024, what can we say?
Yeah, I mean, it's what you said is really interesting. There's a video, UK YouTuber interviewed Matty Longstaff, who plays for us, former Newcastle Academy boy. And he was saying one of the things that he noticed about MLS that was a real shock to the system was that every game in the regular season at around the 65th minute becomes a track meet. Nobody plays for draws, which is something that in Europe happens all the time.
Sure.
And it was a huge shock to his system. And he actually brought up, is it Dean Smith or Gary Smith? I can't remember, at Charlotte, you know, who was playing for, Dean, who was playing for draws, and how surprising it was, you know, that Charlotte is like the only team that seems to be not like turning the game into an utter chaos come 65th to 70th minute. So just thought it was interesting that you brought up the draws.
And interestingly enough, Charlotte got paid back with the best defense maybe we've ever seen in Major League Soccer. But some of the other squads that we've previewed on this show before, we mentioned, we're like, this is a really good defense, but they give up a lot because they score a lot. You know, Inter Miami, for one, their defense is probably better than they look on paper. They're giving up 2-3 a game, but they're scoring 5, so those 2 don't matter. That was certainly not the case with Toronto, as they needed to defend. Again, the defense was about league average. It was the offense that just sputtered, nothing going on there. And you can see that from the chart we're going to pull up right here. Prince Owusu, 9 goals and a ticket out of town. Bernadeschi and Insigne, you got 8 goals, 6 assists, 4 goals and 5 assists. And at least one of these guys shouldn't be around in town anymore. DeAndre Kerr, 3 goals, 1 assist. We're really scraping the bottom of the barrel here. Derek Etienne, 3 goals. Matty Longstaff, 2 and 2. And Marshall Ruddy with a goal and 3 assists. Obviously, this is kind of, I guess we would call this top heavy, just no one scoring goals.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, story of TFC's life. Those stats for DeAndre are just MLS. In the domestic Canadian Championship, he did score something ridiculous, like 4. I think he scored 4 goals in a single game. It might have been 5, but it was
Yeah.
against a lower tiered team. He does hold the record for the most goals in a single TFC game in all competitions. So maybe put a star next to give him his flowers. But yeah, yeah, you hit the nail on the head. This is a woeful attack.
John
9
Herdman
goals,
came in,
sure.
and I think that has a little bit to do with the offense. From these top contributors, there was a 6-game span in the middle of the season where the vibes were good. Insigne, Bernadeschi high-fiving, Herdman, getting hugs on the sideline after every goal. But as the losses came, that quickly evaporated. I thought Herdman was going to be in for the long haul and really change the culture of this club. It seems that was an unfair assumption, maybe at that point. Can you talk about how that happened throughout the course of the season with his downfall?
Yeah, I mean, let me correct you. It was the beginning of the season, and they were all 1-0 wins. Lorenzo Insigne scored a bunch of worldies. We were playing really tightly contested matches, and a few of his a few. He's got one trick. It happened twice, and he won us a couple of games, and we were coasting on vibes. We can't see the forest for the trees in TFC land, and this extends all the way back to the beginning of last season, right? And shows in how much we were throwing out the "Are we back?" Memes at the top of last season, because we were desperate for any kind of positivity, and Herdman's modus operandi has always been a culture warrior more than a tactician, and so we were like, all right, we're getting what we paid for, here we go. But when you build the cart without the horse and you don't think about putting wheels on it, you're not going to go very far. And this team not only has a horrible roster with a bunch of albatross contracts, one in particular that is absolutely kneecapping this squad. But and then it had it happened to collide with sort of John Herdman getting found out a bit as his tactical nous not necessarily being up to scratch, and then the sort of intrigue going on with Canada Soccer that resulted in his resignation as the coach of TFC leading up to this season. The TLDR is the Canadian Women's
Spying with drones, and everyone was
drone.
involved.
Yeah,
Or everyone took heat for being involved.
everyone took heat for being involved. It was a bit of a witch hunt. Canadians do love to eat our own, especially under the microscope of global interest. It's a kind of disgusting habit that we have. But John saw the writing on the wall, wanted to control his own narrative. This is all speculation, but certainly it was a "you can't fire me because I quit" kind of thing. And to be honest, I think it was for the better. I think John Herdman is a very charismatic person, but so are snake oil salesmen. And I'm remiss to call him one because we didn't see how it all worked out.
Yeah.
But it was 50-50, I'll be honest. And I think that there's no sacred cows at TFC anymore, and Herdman was trying to anoint himself as one, and I think it might have been bad. So I'm kind of happy that page is turned.
Well, we're on the topic of coaches, something we haven't talked about yet for the Canadian national team. You have Jesse Marsh, the Canadian national team coach of Major League Soccer. What is going on there?
Well, man, how long do you got?
Let's just go quickly into like the name and just that he's replacing.
Canada had our own SUM, our Soccer United Marketing. We still do, and it was costing it was taking money out of the coffers of the Canadian men's and women's national team to fund our domestic Tier 1 league, the Canadian Premier League. It was a deal almost as bad as Lorenzo Insigne's. You know, we seem to have a habit of doing that, but it's getting changed regardless. There wasn't the kind of money to pay Jesse Marsh. The new CEO of Canada Soccer is very, very good at fundraising and did kind of work some magic and got the Canadian MLS teams to sort of pony up to pay for our national coach. Which isn't, it's kind of ridiculous, but considering the amount of ridiculous that I've been living through with this team and the general universe for the last 48 hours, well, with TFC, it's been a lot longer than that, but like, it's a nothing burger. The fact nobody cares anymore because Jesse Marsh can do no wrong. He can do no wrong.
In the end, it probably still is a net positive for Canadian
Absolutely.
soccer,
Absolutely.
having someone like that to push players.
100%.
Jesse Marsh, obviously, as a Red Bull fan, someone we know near and dear to our hearts, and the fact that he
I love it.
verbally snubbed the U.S. soccer job is fantastic.
No, he's amazing. He's visiting fifth division clubs. He's scouting fifth division clubs when he doesn't have to. He's doing 1,000 media hits all the time. The man is invested, and if it took a little bit of shenanigans with respect to actually making the Canadian MLS clubs, which feed into the national team, a little bit investors so that they have more skin in the game, then it worked out for the best, to be completely honest. So no complaints there. Absolutely no complaints there. He's a dynamo. We love him here. He never has to pay for a drink in this country again. Let's put it that way.
Love to hear it. Now, talking about the transfer, we got to go back to TFC. Unfortunately,
yeah, let's go.
Transfers outgoing. You got defenders Mabika and O'Neill, Brandon Servania, Prince Owusu, and Thiago Andrade, who somehow made the outgoing and the ingoing transfer tracker here.
Yeah, we bought him and then immediately flipped him to a team. I think it's in Japan, and made a decent bit of money. This is, of course, when we were still in the GAM era of MLS. This is before we even got a wind of these cash trade things. But, Jason Hernandez and the front office staff were able to pick him up for a song and then flip him for a decent amount of change. So it was a smart bit of business. The other names on that list, I don't think you can say defender and Amy Mabika in the same sentence, and I have absolutely no qualm saying that. One of the worst defenders I've ever seen, and certainly one of the worst to ever suit up for the club. Shane O'Neill's a bit of a surprise. I think it's just a matter of age and how many miles he's got left in his legs, and certainly he wasn't on a discounted rate. Brandon's unfortunate. He was showing up for the team, but then he got injured and kind of lost his place in the team, and would have been more expensive, would have been an expensive bet. And I just think that TFC is the club of expensive bets that go wrong right now. So this was an easy one to say no. Prince Owusu, I mean, whatever. He, if you saw his first press conference from Montreal, he's dead to me. So, I hope he has a good time there.
Yeah. All right. Let's take a look at this depth chart. We are kind of going on what we saw a little bit last year. I have like a 3-4-3 or a 5-2-3, depending on which way you look at it here. And we can start from the back because Sean Johnson is looking up.
Yeah. He's penciled in. And Luca Gavrin, when he deputized for Sean when he was away on international duty and he was injured last year, he had some howlers. But he's still, he's still good enough that I think he's a capable deputy, and he's a very, very minuscule cap hit. So I think we're sorted in terms of goalies. Sean John's great, and I'm so happy he's still here with us because I'd hate to think about trying to recruit a goalie with this club. Yeah.
The step up, the center backs, not looking great. You got Kevin Long, who's pretty good. Sigurd Rosted behind him. We have Petretta, Henry Wingo. Not a whole lot here. What is your best three pairing?
I think you've got it right there. But I have to mention that Nixon Gomes wasn't at our first preseason game, and the club gave us no knowledge. Richie Larea wasn't there. He went home for personal reasons. It was easy to divine why. His wife is pregnant with their second child, I believe, so something along those lines. But Nixon wasn't there, and there are a lot of spies on TFC Live on X and the social medias that are kind of, searching his follow list on Instagram, et cetera, to find out just what's up with Nixon Gomes. He was a real bright spark last year. Came from, I want to say, the Sheffield Academy. I may be wrong in that, but a diamond in the rough. Really, really good player. Prone to some brain farts, but a really exciting, athletic center back that does those recovery tackles and gets a foot stuck and that sort of thing. Yeah, I mean, center backs, it's woeful. It's woeful, and that goes back to not bringing Shane O'Neill back. You get this impression that TFC were recruiting players over to sort of fill in depth there, and then kind of met things going wrong because we've seen no movement there. I mean, even seeing Raul Petretta put there and Henry Ringo put there, those are not traditional center backs, right? They're adaptable players. Raul Petretta was brought in as a left back by the club, and sure, he's going to deputize there, and certainly Richie Larea and Kobe Franklin might as well, but they're not dyed-in-the-wool center backs. And Kevin Long is great, but he has some serious cons. He's as slow as a bus. He's old. He'll get beaten in the air, which happened to us often. And he doesn't necessarily have the legs to go the entire season. So, looking at what's behind him, Sigurd Rosted, which is one of the, everybody, there are a lot of people in TFC land that are calling for the club to exercise a buyout on him now that we can do two. It doesn't leave you with a lot of positivity. So yeah, there's a lack of depth in center back that is pretty awful.
Looked up Nixon Gomes, who was a terrible recipient of the autocorrect of the draft here. He was Sheffield, French and Senegalese. So let's move now to the fullback / left and right midfielders. We have Richie Larea and Bernadeschi, both who are going to be designated players, I believe, for the 2025 season. Behind them, we have Spicer, Petretta. I was just kind of pulling names out of a hat there.
Those are good names.
Those are good names. That is, I think, a position of strength. So let's talk about what the tactical relationship is here with these guys. As far as I could see, these are guys expected to get the whole up and down the field on both sides. Bernadeschi obviously known for his attacking prowess, not much tracking back, but he'll play it in a pinch. Let's talk about the fullback or the wide position here.
Let's talk about the wide position. So Richie can play both sides. He's more comfortable on the right, where you have Bernadeschi. Robin Fraser has said publicly he does not plan to deploy Federico Bernadeschi as a wingback this season. So you'll see him further up the pitch, which does open the space for Kobe Franklin, who can also play on both sides, although he does prefer the right, as you have in your lineup right here, and Richie Larea to kind of platoon as the starting fullbacks for this team, because I do think you're going to see Raul Petretta play more minutes in the center back position due to lack of warm bodies.
Sure.
And Spicer is interesting. Spicer is you may not know this, but he was the number one draft pick.
The draft pick, yeah, of course.
Took. Yeah, and it was a good class, and we were all really confused why Spicer was picked. There were a few Canadians on that list that were going to go in high spots in the super draft that would have been a much lower charge. That would have been way more convenient for TFC, and we chose Spicer. And then we immediately understood why. This kid
he looked great in flashes. Yeah.
Oh yeah, he's got speed for days. He's got a nose for goal. He's good. He showed a lot of chemistry with the team in limited minutes, and then he got injured, and really wasn't the same coming back. So yeah, I can see Spicer playing some minutes as a fullback, but I can also see him up there, like you have him third, as a left winger. in this 4-3-3 that you've sort of thrown together, or this 3-4-3 that you've sort of thrown together. I do think he's going to get some minutes. Where I don't know, beyond what I just said. I could even see him. God, I could even see him. I don't want to say it, but I could maybe see him pulling some duty as a nine, false nine in this goals by committee sort of thing, depending on team health and that sort of stuff. This guy's, yeah,
He wouldn't have a lot of pushback on the depth chart. I mean, I don't think DeAndre Kerr
exactly.
is gonna be a world beater by any means next season, right?
Exactly. So he'll get minutes, but it will be there and maybe up front. I would think, but I don't think we'll see him on the right, and I don't think we'll see him in central midfield.
So how would you, if we are editing the depth chart right now, Bernadeschi's gone, he's going to move up maybe to where I have Jonathan Osorio, and then you have Larea on the right and on the left Petretta Spicer. Is that kind of how you see things?
I would actually have Larea and Franklin as kind of the, for lack of a better word, starting outside
Sure.
back, starting wide players, and I would have Spicer and Petretta in the mix. I would have Cozy Thompson in the mix, even though he's sort of proven out over the season that he tends to do better when he comes in for spells in the central midfield. Robin Fraser, one of the really interesting things that came out of his press conferences was he's not married to any kind of formation. And he wants this team to be really comfortable in a few different formations, especially when we transfer from attack to defense. So without bringing in like pet ball or going into total football kind of
Yeah.
BS, I do think you'll see a lot more fluidity than we did with Herdman, because Herdman, love the man, but he was pretty one-dimensional
Sure.
when it came down to brass tacks. A lot of his subs were very obvious. A lot of his game planning was the same game plan over and over again, which asked the question if he had another one in his locker. So it's interesting. It's certainly exciting to hear that Robin Fraser doesn't want us to be locked into that, because this is an island of misfit toys, right? You throw me any formation and or any standard formation in sort of the inverting the pyramid
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
theorem, and I'm at a
You
loss
could
for
fit.
words, because
Yeah.
there's holes everywhere, right? So this idea of fluidity, it's kind of helps the medicine go down, right? It's the spoonful of sugar that kind of helps the medicine go down. So yeah, I think that would be my answer there. And I love what you've got in our central midfield, because you've given my boy Alonso Cuejo top billing, which nobody in Toronto seems to want
Yeah.
to do. I love him. Listen, he's a weird one. He's, Atletico Madrid vetted. He was in their academy, but he is 25 years old, and up until last year was on a contract with our MLS Next Pro team. So something, it's a failure in the front office to sort of get him the minutes, and I'll own up to that. Like, my team is terrible at doing this, but seeing him get minutes last season, and again, this is somebody that had a huge injury spell mid-season and came back and had to come back into
Yeah.
form. But even then, he needs to be a bit, and I can't believe I'm saying this because a silky Spanish midfielder is my favorite thing in football, but he does need to be a bit more Davy Flores on the ball. He does need to be a bit more of a destroyer. He needs to put that in his toolbox. So I love this central midfield pairing, but I
But
don't.
here's the question, if you
Yeah.
don't mind me asking.
Yeah, go
If we
ahead.
think Bernadeschi is going to move up and play right wing and Insigne is on the
Where
left
does
wing,
that leave
where does that leave
Jonathan
Osorio? Yeah.
Exactly. And that gets back to what I was saying, island and misfit toys. I think it leaves us with Osorio and Davy Flores as the starting midfielders, and then Longstaff and Cuejo coming in. Or let's hope that Robin Fraser is the kind of coach that will game plan, actually look at video from the teams that we're facing on a week-to-week basis, and put the guys into those 2 spots or 3 spots that are best able to deal with whatever kind of tactics we're facing from our opponent, which I think is something Herdman didn't do with this glut of midfielders, because they are not all the same player. I mean, Davy Flores is the prime example of that, and there could be games where you don't need a 6. You can get away with 2 8s, right?
There could be a lot of games where, I mean, when I look at this roster and, I say if you want to run 3 center backs, you need 5.
Yeah,
There's not 5 center backs on this team. So if you move
100%.
Larea out right, you keep, Petretta out left. Now you could have Rosted, Gomes, and as your center backs. That opens up another midfield spot. Is there anyone here who carries like a possibility for like the tool set to be a number 10?
No, not really.
Fair enough.
We've put Oso. Oso is Scholes, right? His best position is a roving 8 that comes late into the box to clean up messes. Those are the highlight reel goals that he scored for the club. That's why we love him. So asking him to be a 10 or an 8-10 hybrid is really bad. This is a consequence of Bob Bradley's time at the club, right? We had a 10 in Alejandro Pozuelo. Bob Bradley is allergic to 10s. And world football is kind of allergic to proper 10s right now. That's my favorite position on the field, but somehow people have decided that a proper 10 is unnecessary. This club is screaming for a proper 10. I would argue more than a proper 9, actually. We're screaming for that guy. And I think the closest we have is Cuejo, but even Cuejo is not, he's not quite there yet. And, you with a 10, you kind of want to plug and play solutions. So you would do that by committee again. There is nobody. I mean, listen, Robin Fraser was talking about playing Lorenzo Insigne as the 10, which is, for lack of a better word,
fitting.
Absolutely badass. But, listen, we tried almost everything else. And listen, we saw him playing centrally in the pregame in Marbella, and it was absolute dog poo. So like he was getting bossed by 16-year-olds on that team, and didn't want to be there. So I don't ever want to see him in the 10, but listen, why not try it? But yeah, you're probably going to see Osario do some spells. Bernadeschi, Herdman had him play as a 10, 3-4 games last season. It was all right. Berna's engine is unbelievable. So it sometimes makes up for his lack of technical ability and that it's not a position he's familiar with. And you'll maybe see Lorenzo Insigne do his impression of a 10, but no. In terms of do we have a 10? Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
So we're gonna put those wingers Insigne and Bernadeschi out there. We'll see how many games they can play together. Over under on 10.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I wish we were in a trade war with another country, if I'm being honest. Lorenzo is Mr. Sunk Cost Fallacy, right? From the club, from the fans, from anybody with any kind of skin in the game in Toronto, right? TFC fans are being pretty arrogant right now. And again, it's hard to watch, The rest of the Eastern Conference seems to be spending money like it's going out of style, using all these levers that MLS has created, the cash deals, everything else. And we're not. And it's totally disingenuous to say to Toronto TFC, why aren't you? When the answer is right there. We've spent the money that you're all spending 3 years ago, right? And he's still here, right? You cannot conflate the two. So the rumor right now is Besiktas, but Lorenzo's camp has said that he's waiting for the transfer windows in Italy to close because little Twinkle Toes, little Lord Fauntleroy wants to go back to Italy, on our dollar.
Sure.
And nobody's really sure of how desperate TFC are to rid themselves of Lorenzo Insigne. Are they going to actually do a buyout? Are they going to negotiate a lesser number? Are they going to take the massive amount of rinsing we're going to get if a team like Besiktas steps in? Are we going to end up in a situation where we're paying him and we still have a DP slot occupied by him, just not to play here? And, maybe we should be considering those sorts of things. Which reminds me, I need to go back on something you said. Richie Larea can be bought down by TAM to a TAM player.
Sure.
If you had asked me 6 months ago, would TFC do that in order to take the 2 DP, $2 million in Garber bucks kind of thing? I would have said yes. This close to opening day, my answer is a little bit different. I don't think TFC are in a position to maximize that $2 million in Garber bucks anyway. So who cares at this thing? And it's also not as ironclad as it was when we first got wind of it. It was like TFC has to declare, before
Yeah.
this date and then live by it, and we'll get it tattooed on everybody's forehead. But now it seems to be a lot more ephemeral, and teams can change back and forth or whatever, because MLS is going to MLS.
I always
Yeah.
I always make the joke. I'm a big like improv comedy guy, and at one point
too.
you could have called Whose Line Is It Anyway improv comedy.
Yeah.
Now maybe not so
Exactly.
much, but
Yeah.
where where at the beginning where they say welcome to Whose Line Is It Anyway, where the game's made up and the points don't matter.
They
Like
don't
that's how
matter.
I see the roster rules for this season. Let's go up to the number 10 position. DeAndre Kerr looks like he's going to get
number
first shots at the number 9. DeAndre
Hmm.
Kerr looks like he's going to be center forward opening day, but you do have some other guys there. Theo Corbineau was added. Charlie Sharp.
Corbianu, my friend.
That's
And
exactly
Charlie
how I
Sharp.
pronounced it.
Yep.
One more time about that.
And Theo Corbianu.
Okay, that was closer than I would have expected.
It's a tongue twister. Anyway, I'm excited about him. Canadian men's national team capped player. Had a lot of heat on his name. Moved to Europe. Did the sort of bouncing loan spells to a million different clubs kind of thing. Never really fit in anywhere. Did start out at the TFC Academy. And he is a demon on the ball. His off the ball work, he tends to fade in games, which is kind of why I don't think he made it at that kind of European level. Coaches questioned his commitment and that sort of thing. But when he's on the ball, he's an absolute monster. The problem is he's not a traditional number 9. He's used to playing on the wings, which, we have a surfeit of wingers at TFC. We will see him in the 9 position simply because it's an area of need, and he can maybe do something there. And we're going to have the Theo at number 9 experiment. But I'm glad you bring up Charlie Sharp. Charlie Sharp has done great things at the MLS Next Pro level, and I would like to see him get more meaningful minutes this year, because TFC2 has a big problem with respect to especially strikers that do business at that level, not trusting them to come into the first team to even try them out. We like the front office will say, well, we gave them minutes here and there. They're garbage minutes and they didn't prove anything.
Sure.
I'd like to give Charlie Sharp a decent enough run out this year that we can actually make a decision on whether or not he's ready for the big show kind of thing. And again, DeAndre Kerr gets a lot of flack, but his skill set's really interesting. He's a converted midfielder. He's not afraid to make the runs that a number 9 should be making all the time, right? Those sort of endless runs, whether or not you're getting service. While Prince Owosu was complaining, and not making the runs because Berna and Lorenzo weren't going to pass to him, because of course DeAndre still was. So, let's not close the book on DeAndre yet. If we had a functioning team behind him, this kid could maybe pot more goals. And yeah, it's, he dominates against lower tiers, and against MLS opposition, he's kind of a newborn deer out there. But he's still young. This team hasn't done him any favors. I am buying DeAndre Kerr stock. Absolutely.
I'm gonna, throw Tyrese Spicer's name in there a little bit, and in all this winger, we haven't talked about Derek Etienne. Maybe that's because I know a lot about him. I've seen him play for a long time. A lot of engine, and not. I do know who he is.
No, do you know where he is? Because
I do
was
not know where he
another
is.
No-show at our preseason, and nobody knows why. Absolutely nobody.
If I hear, you will be the first one to know on Derek Etienne Jr. But it's kind of a lot of pace and not a lot of fire with that smoke there.
Yeah, that's fair. We had him in the number 9 position because, of course, a few times last season. Yeah. He did some impressive things, but it wasn't a complete package in any way, shape, and form. I liked him best coming on for Lorenzo when Lorenzo decided that he had enough and subbed himself out, because it was like night and day. Somebody that actually ran. that was looking to connect with his teammates that weren't named Bernadeschi. And it was a shot of fresh air. It really was. It was like a breath of fresh air after watching, Il Magnifico pretend cosplay as a footballer for 65, 70 minutes.
It's strange how that works out, because as much as I know you have nothing good to say about Lorenzo Insigne, when you defend him, you have to still have a little bit of zip on what you're doing, just because he can turn it upside down at the drop of a hat. And then you get someone like Derek Etienne running into you, maybe your legs aren't 100%. That seems like a recipe that maybe a better coach like Robin Fraser might be able to exploit.
That's fair. I mean, if the problem, I think you are overestimating his effect on MLS defenders right now. I think they'll let him play, because he will back pass 99% of the time if he's under pressure. He wants to preserve those ankles for his storied return to whatever narrative he's got cooked up in his head, right? He doesn't commit. This man is not going to drive at three guys. He's just not going to. Like, we've seen it. He's just not going to. He's thinking about Messi's, shirt at the end of the game over anything else, right? Like, I don't honestly, who cares what's going on in his head? So, yeah, on paper, 100%. But in reality, defenders, they respect him, but they're not worried about him. They really aren't. And honestly, I think that, if because he's got one move, and so if you concede on the outside shot, the triagio or whatever he calls it, that's going to happen 1 out of every 10 times. I think they've done the math and they're prepared to let him shoot outside the box. Because he's probably going to back pass anyway, or try something stupid with Bernadeschi, end to end, right? So, yeah.
Point well taken. Got to move on. 2025 storylines. I pose these as questions, but they're more just kind of, posits, things that we're going to follow throughout the season. The first question was, can anything be done to make Lorenzo Insigne happy? The answer is going to be no on that, right? Just flat across the board.
I think it's a poison chalice, right? And it's the sunk cost fallacy. Can Toronto shed their big contracts? We could ship Lorenzo off to Bologna or Sampdoria tomorrow if we wanted to, if we were prepared to pay his salary. They'll take him. Of course they'll take him.
Yeah.
But that's not going to do us any benefit, right? So, yeah, they can, but how much are we going to get rinsed on it? That's the $15 million question, right? Are we prepared to eat a bag of poo, and basically, like, because we're eating one right now. So, are we going to S or get off the pot kind of thing? So I think the question is disingenuous. Can we? Absolutely. Will we? It depends. And this is something that is painful to Toronto fans, because we had it with Josie Altidore, where, we owed the man money and he was unwilling to take a cent less than his guaranteed contract, and here we are again with an even worse albatross. So, it's kind of insane. But no, your answer was correct. Unilaterally, no. I think, Bernadeschi played himself into a deal, but then he also unlocked a performance incentive with those numbers to stay on our books until 2028. So he's not going anywhere. Yeah.
Is the thought towards Bernadeschi less than is the resentment towards him and his play less than Insigne at this point? Yes.
100%. 100%. I mean, they were both, their names were mud following the Bob Bradley debacle. Following that season, Berna came back a machine. There was nothing. Listen, the man has anger management issues. Like, you can't be doing that, getting those kind of yellow cards and disciplinary things. And there, his game, he's not a complete player by any stretch of the imagination, but he works so hard. He treats his body as a temple. Man learned English, which we can't say for the other guy.
Sure.
He puts himself out there in club videos. He seems to be an agreeable person. He says the right things about Toronto and with respect to loving the city and being here. So he's definitely redeemed himself, which is more than I can say for option B.
When all else fails, you can just say that he changes his hair up a lot. I know that's a favorite of the fans.
It's certainly entertaining. Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I like it just for the fact that it draws your eye. You know, when a player has like, you know, the Abubakar, you know, and then Bernadeschi when he comes with the braids, like, you know where he is on the field. He's not blending in with anyone else there. Have a couple one here. We kind of answered the contracts thing. Can Toronto repair their home field advantage? Because they had been quite a good home field team for a long time, but when I look at their losses, Red Bull, Columbus Crew, okay, there's nothing bad about that, but you're dropping points to DC United, to Nashville, Chicago at home, NYCFC at home. Those are games that you have to win. Sporting KC 3-1 in March. Those are games that you have to win moving forward. Can you repair a home field advantage?
Yes. Will we? Not this year. You know, that's so far in you know, we got to have a team before we can start thinking about, you know, the accolades, right? So yeah, can we? Absolutely. Will we? I don't know. I want to see
500 or better. Like you were an 11 at home. Can you switch that and be like 10-8?
I wouldn't go that far. I would say I would see bordering around 500 would be successful for this team. Not losing to Chicago Fire. You know, I think we conceded 4 goals in the first half that game. Like, it was over in like the 28th minute. Like, not doing that, I'm happy, right? You know, turning BMO back into a fortress, we're getting ahead of ourselves, kid. You know, I've been hurt before. Yeah.
Fair enough. And I'm actually a little optimistic about this team this season because I like Robin Fraser. I think that's a great hire. What changes does he bring into the club? I already talked about one that I might think maybe moving to a 4-man back line, putting 3 actual midfielders out there. Anything else he can bring to the club? And this could be tactical or outside of the realm of tactics.
I mean, he brings the member berries, which are always a danger, you know, as he was the assistant during our time at the summit.
Great reference.
So he does come with a ton of member berries, which is a blessing and a curse. But he is a very you know, it's, if you look at Herdman is very much blustery, you know, it's very much bark. It's word salad. It's you know, quotes that you would find on inspirational posters. Robin Fraser is almost the complete opposite of that. He's a very soft-spoken kind of dude, but he's very detail-oriented in a way that Herdman just wasn't. So I think he brings stability in terms of, you know, at the very least, we're not asking questions about the gaffer. But it's stability in the Bob Bradley kind of way, which we've been burned in the last 4 years, right? So we're kind of scared to go, oh, this guy is a steadying hand, because we thought Bob Bradley would be the steadyingest of steadying hands, and it was absolute abject chaos. So I think what Robin Fraser brings to the club is warm, fuzzy feelings based on member berries. I think he brings, you know, there are a lot of people in TFC land that were really unimpressed with this hire. They think that it's a very underwhelming hire and that we should have gone for Jose Mourinho because that's the way TFC land works sometimes. I think he brings a little, you know, I'm just going to say it. It might be horribly wrong, but I think he brings a steadying presence to the club that it desperately needed, because everything else is total, complete chaos.
Let's get to the fun part, the 2025 predictions. The first 3 are connected. What is a realistic season outcome? What is the team's best possible outcome? What is the team's worst possible outcome? And when I ask for possible, I mean like within the realm of possible. Like, we're not going to say like Lorenzo Insigne scores 25 goals and the team wins MLS Cup. Like realistically, I think that this team it should be where they were last year. I don't think this is the worst team in the Eastern Conference. I think they could be in that 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 range.
I agree.
I think that is the most realistic.
Yeah.
I think that the best they can do, I think they can get a play-in round, a 7, 8, 9 spot. I really think that is within the realm of possibility. And I think 100%. That if a couple things go right, you have the depth. You just haven't had the guys step up and, you know, make the most out of their opportunity. But you have an academy. You have these young guys who are ready to go. Mm-hmm. If all the cards fall right, like if everyone, Cielo, Spicer, Longstaff, Franklin, Petretta, if all these guys step up and you get Gomes to show up and play, there's no reason why, like looking at the numbers, I have like my spreadsheet and the players are like different colors, you know, red is the best, blue is the worst, like in the rainbow. Yeah, you have some holes. You have some really glaringly obvious stuff there, but you have a lot of guys for me who are green, which is an unproven depth piece. You know, there is a path to this team being average.
Yeah, I think that's
which is
fair.
no full-throated endorsement. It's not like a ringing.
The goal is mid.
Yeah.
The goal is mid. It really is. If we can be mid and not have the glass bottom boat fall out the second we pull away from the dock, I think we're happy. I would say a play-in round. I mean, a play-in round, considering we've missed the playoffs for the last 4 seasons, we'd be doing backflips in the streets. We may plan a parade. So yeah, I agree with you. I think as high as 6th I would go, and no higher than that. Not with this roster. You have a lot more hope than I do. I've seen what happens with hope with this roster. I don't think any of your green players can be depended on for an entire season. I will be pleasantly surprised if we get full season performance out of 90% of the guys that you've got on your green. The best possible outcome we've already had. I mean, did your club buy you a Kaiju? We have one. We've got a Kaiju, and you don't. So there you go. I don't know what that is. We've got a giant robot murder hawk in front of our training ground, and you don't. So there you go.
Yes, you got us there for sure. I guess you got to make the small joys in life when you're a TFC fan. Guys, thank you so much for checking in. Jeff, one more time before we go, let us know where we can find your work, Waking the Red.
Yeah, Waking the Red, and our weekly podcast, Toronto Till I Die, which is pretty aptly named because it should be Toronto is Killing Us, and we may change the title this season. But yeah, we're on just about every Monday. We'll have you on when we face off, and we'll do the usual Who Are You segment. But yeah, you can catch me there with all the other TFC sickos, doing group therapy as our team hopefully doesn't disappoint us as bad as we're expecting this year. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on and joining us today.
Anytime.
And thank you guys at home for tuning into the Designated Pundits.